All right, what's up everyone? I thought this was gonna be a one video deal, right? Thought I'd make one video on it right when it came out and I'd be done with it and we move on. And then I saw that it kind of caught traction. Not the video, but the response to what's been going on with this whole FLW thing and the Minnesota thing and the anglers getting tickets and all that stuff. So I made a video. Even as of right now, as I haven't done the video yet. It's done, I just haven't. I was gonna release it tomorrow. Now I don't know if I should probably do this video first. And actually it's probably gonna be a 3-part series. It was gonna be one video, but I saw 2 different things going on, 2 different angles, right? And what people are saying. So I figured maybe I'll address those 2 parts first and then do the overall video, which I've already done. So I'm not saying they should all relate, but hopefully the last video, you'll have a better understanding of why I said what I said after listening to these points, because apparently these 2 points I'm about to make, I'm gonna make one of them right now and hope that understands, okay? So if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's about the MLF thing, the Bass Pro Tour at Minnesota, where 2 guys got tickets, nothing happened to them, no disqualifications, and it was a rule violation. It was a rule violation not in the rules of the tournament. So it was like a state rule that they weren't allowed to use 2 lines at the same time, okay? Now, I don't even know if I get into the part of like why this law even exists. But I will say this. This is the major argument. And this is just a flat statement that everyone makes. And I don't think there's any regard or thought into what they say. It's just an easy statement for people on the internet to say is, hey man, it's what it basically is it's the job of the fisherman to know all the state laws. Every state law. That's what they say. And I'm going to kind of disagree with that. And here's why. In theory, yes, that's a very good, easy, blanket statement to make. Like, you should know all the laws before you go fish that body of water. Okay? Yeah, I guess we should. I'll just say this, okay? Before I go, because I can make 1,000 analogies, and I probably will. When you get on the road today and drive somewhere, make sure you know every law. All of them. Every one of them. In every state. In every county. You better know the speed limit. You got to know the normal laws. Like, you got to know the normal laws of driving. Right? I'm sure every one of y'all can tell me that the distance that you're not allowed to change lanes before a railroad track. Right? You should know that before you go out there and drive and get a ticket. Right? And you should know that. Right? Like, all these things. If a cop came up to you and asked you every state law right now on driving, and not just on driving, like even on your vehicle, right? About how much tint you can have on your windows and like your registration, like everything. Everything has to be, perfect. Perfect. Because if you get one little citation, what if they just took your vehicle away? Right? Because that's kind of almost what we're talking about, right? We're talking about like you get one little citation, like you can be DQ'd from an entire tournament, right? And those tournaments cost thousands of dollars. You've done all this stuff. Now, I agree. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have got DQ'd. Okay? I'm going to throw this out there real quick. I'm not saying they shouldn't have got DQ'd. Okay? Because there's many factors to this, what went on here. But the blanket statement to say they should have known every law before they got on that water, good luck. And until you've done this, until you've gone to all these different states, and not states, guys, lakes. I'm going to throw both of those in there because it's not the same. You basically said I have to know everything there is to know when I set foot on that lake or state. But they're all different because the lakes I fish in Texas, they got a ton of rules. Now there's state laws, yes, But there's rules within the lake that you can get tickets for. Now, you probably don't know them. I probably don't know them all. It's so hard to know them all. Like over years and years and years, I know things now that are right and wrong. Okay? And what I mean by right or wrong is I'm going to try to throw out as many examples as I possibly can. I'm about to go to the Red River. Okay? Let me tell you about the Red River in Louisiana. They still don't know half the laws over there about what's public water, private water. It's why they stopped going to Louisiana. It's because there's so many things you have to know. And then not only do you have to know them, you got other people that don't believe in those. And so they're liable to come like run you off with a shotgun. Maybe not you, but maybe the next guy. So it's hard to have tournaments over there because in this other video I did, my main thing is this. I say this is there's two sets of rules people are playing by. Okay? It's the people who know and the people who don't know. And it's not necessarily your fault because you don't know, but it still creates two sets of rules. Okay? So put that in the back burner, right? We got a lot of things to cover here. I know on Amstead, there's a marina on Amstead. And if any of y'all have ever been to Amstead, you're not allowed to go in that marina. Right? Hallman just informed me on the Chesapeake Bay that there's an Army base over here and there's some water you're not allowed to go in. Okay? I'm sure y'all know about that. Right? Hallman, they found this out from the tournament director. When I go to Table Rock, they give you a list of certain marinas that are private, and you have to draw a line around them for the most part. Now I had to figure out this line, exactly what that line meant, because the tournament I just fished had an off limits area, and that line was different. That line was right up to the walkway. So imagine having a whole bunch of marina stalls, and if you come to the first one, you can't fish anything until you come to the last one. All that's off limits. But you could fish right up to the walkway. Okay? Now, at Table Rock, it's not like that. You can't be, I think it's 50 feet from any part of the marina dock. Okay? I was there last time in a Toyota event. And I had to go check with there was a sight fish it was on the edge of one of those marina docks. And I said, man, I don't know if it's 50 foot. I literally put my boat up and touched the marina dock and tried to figure out. It was like 40 feet. The fish was where it was on a bed. Never fished for it. Never made a cast to it. Probably would have won the event for me. Never made a cast to it. It was too close. Right? Now, I knew this because I found out about the rules from the tournament director because they started talking about it. From the tournament directors, right? From the organization, they put out there that this is an issue. I don't have to stay away from marinas on Livingston and Texoma and all these other places, right? Just Table Rock, and only certain ones, not all of them, just the private ones. And they give you a list of them. Kentucky Lake, I've been on some, right? Kentucky Lake, I had this guy at a marina, I mean, absolutely ripped me up one end down the other. And so did another lady. Said I wasn't allowed to fish there. And luckily, I didn't really care what they had to say. And I practiced there and practiced there. Come to find out, I got so mad that I went out and talked to the tournament director. They said, nope. It was Ron Lampin. He said, nope, you're allowed to be there. Luckily, even the next morning, before the first day of takeoff, a game warden was there. I told him what marina it was, where it was going down, all that stuff. And he said, hey, man, you're allowed to be there. Doesn't matter what they say. If they give you any trouble, you tell them to holler at me. I got to that marina, went and fished it. When I was there, both those people walked down there and I mean glared at me, never said a word. I guarantee you they made a call to those people and say, hey, stop harassing us fishermen because we weren't doing anything wrong. Now in the same lake, they also have rules. I don't know if it's still the same at Kent Lake, although I know they've had them, that marina, but the marina on by the dam where the takeoff is out of, y'all help me out, you're not allowed to throw in the slips, but you could fish around the marina, right? So even in the same lake, there's different rules for different things. Now I bring all that up because the BPT and the elites are different in this sense. I know with the elites, and I'm sure it's with the BPT because we just had some stuff about the information stuff. You're not allowed to get information, right? Now, most people say you're not allowed to get information about fishing. Yeah, but you're really not supposed to, like, if you know most of those guys, or a lot of them, they don't even want the lakes being brought up because they don't want anything being skewed as information that they're getting. So that's information that would help you in the sense of like knowledgeable about the lake, not in the sense of to catch a fish, but like, that's just good information to know that like, hey, you're not supposed to do something illegal. This is not right. Every lake has those. So is that information they're allowed to get or not allowed to get? And where's the line there, right? So they're not supposed to get information, but yet everyone sits there and says, hey, they should know all these and look these up. Well, I promise you right now, I can't, I'll put it to you this way. I guarantee you some lakes you can find out this information, some you can't. But how would you know? Like if I'd never been to Chesapeake Bay, I wouldn't know that there's some Army base thing over there in waters that you're not supposed to go into unless someone told me. Now in the opens, we can all talk to each other, right? And most of the information that we find out, that I find out as anglers, right? We all do a good job of letting each other know, right? We'll go like, hey man, don't want to go in there. Or I might see you in a place, I'm like, hey man, that's going to be off limits or they're going to run you out, right? So don't waste your time. Like we do a pretty good job of not policing ourselves. We're helping each other out, right? So that's how we get a lot of our information because I'm not, you know, in a lot of these, you're not supposed to ask, right? You're not supposed to get information like that. Because how would you wouldn't even know to ask because you don't know some of these things. Like there was no way to know. So yes, in a perfect world, we should all know the state laws when we go to some lake. But then you had half the people sitting there saying that's a stupid law. That's stupid of them. They got a bunch of stupid rules up there. So if you got to think, right? Well, they might be stupid. And regardless of whether they're stupid or not, a lot of stupid rules don't make sense. Now, I think this rule does make sense, but a lot of people don't. So there's a lot of people that wouldn't think to go look up that rule or understand that that's a rule. They've been doing it their whole lives, that you can throw 2 rods in the water, 2 lines out, right? But here you can't. So like that, how would you know that that's not a law? I get it. And there's going to be guys on here going, man, it's your job and whatever. You're right. It's your job when you drive to know all the laws. It's our job to know all the laws for anything, right? I mean, so you're basically saying you can never not make a mistake. You can never not know something. Ignorance doesn't count, right? I can tell you right now, ignorance doesn't count in normal laws out there like that have nothing to do with fishing. Like in a court of law, you're going to get in trouble for that. But there might be some laws that you're like, golly, how was I supposed to know that in your state? Like, really? I've never dealt with that. So I can see both sides. I'm not so quick to make judgment on whether the law was stupid or not, or whether they should have known it or not. What I'll say is this, is that's, you just can't blanket all those statements as one. Normally, if there is something like this, the tournament organization or the tournament directors lets us know these things, okay? And if you did notice in their media release, they said they messed up. Like the organization took most of the blame on this, right? A lot of guys were saying they still should have got DQ'd. It's not my place to sit there and say whether they should or they shouldn't. Like if a tournament director allows you to do something, right? It goes against state law and you don't know that law, that's where I made the video. That they're mingling in this gray. And when you mingle in gray long enough, what happens is you have situations like this. And I will talk about that in that video. That there's 2 sets of rules, right? Not for certain anglers, but guys are abiding by certain rules because they know them and other guys aren't. And it's not fair, right? That's the problem. It's just there's this gray area and it calls for controversy. So this is more to the point of just be careful of what you say in your comments without really thinking about a whole bunch of things. Because I'm telling you, if you've never done this, if you've never gone to all these states and all these lakes, I fished probably over 100 and something lakes. I couldn't even tell you. I've never even thought about how many lakes I fish. And every time I get to one, there's something different that I have to know. And I rarely know them before I get there. Like I somehow find out from people, from locals, from other fishermen, from something. But if I wasn't allowed to ever talk to people about some of these lakes because schedule comes out, no more talking, is that info or is that not, right? So you would hope that the organization kind of fills you in on some of this stuff, right? So just step back a little bit from social media, right? And your first urge to go push good and just think for a second, right? Like step out of the fishing world and just go, you know what? You're right. Like it is their job, but I can see how maybe they didn't know. And if no one told them, it's not as black and white as you think. You would think you know all these laws, but man, there's a bunch of, I wouldn't call them dumb laws, but if anyone's ever played some of these board games and stuff where they have these like laws that are still in existence that are like, you can't eat peanut butter while walking down the street on a Sunday afternoon, right? Like there's some of these crazy laws. We play some games like that have these crazy laws in them. And yeah, we don't know them all. And you're probably not going to get a ticket for them, but they're still a law, right? And so under your thought process, you should be like, no, man, you should have known that. Should have known that before you freaking came up into Chicago. No, I mean, you hope there's some leniency and some things that, you know, someone would kind of like, oh, okay, this is something we should know about. This is something that's important to us. Just like the California deal, I'm sure they let them know that, and I don't know if this is even still a law, but I know back when Steve Kennedy was catching them on a swim bait and he was hooking them outside the mouth, or like, you know, I wouldn't know. Like, let me ask you this. If I have a jerk bait and one of the hooks is inside the mouth and one of the things is outside the mouth, am I allowed to keep it? Because one's in, one's out. I don't know, right? That's something I'd have to ask. But I wouldn't have known that unless I hadn't seen that on TV. I wouldn't know to go to California and be like, I just have to know these things. Some places you're not allowed to drive underneath bridges, right? You have to idle. Some you don't. Every lake's different. Even, what about on Texoma? We still get into it on Texoma. That it's a law under Oklahoma, this is what I've always heard, that you're not allowed to run underneath any bridge, ever. But apparently in Texas you can. But then there's a bridge on Texoma it's on the Oklahoma side, kind of. And so it is, but it's still a lake in Texas and Oklahoma. And to this day, I'm like, hey, can we run underneath them? And we get mixed reviews. So it's like, I guess you could from the tournament standpoint sometimes, but could you get a ticket? And I've even asked some people, and it's kind of, I get both. I don't know what the right answer is because I get two different things. And that's my point. So when you get two different answers, I'm even talking about from law enforcement. I still can't figure out what you're supposed to do. I've always just idled them. But I mean, they've been starting to let people run them. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I still idle them. I don't even know if I'm right or not. It's what I do. So like I said, these are all things that are tough. We used to have this stuff when, having fish and culling dead fish. And I'll bring up the whole culling dead fish in that video, right? Is that in team tournaments, we're allowed to have 10 fish on us in possession. We can only have 5 in the live well, but we're not allowed to cull a dead fish. So could you keep a cooler, not cull a dead fish, put the dead fish on ice, right? And then still have 5 in the live well? You didn't cull it. You kept it in your possession because you're allowed 10. I mean, those were things that people were talking about. I mean, there's also a thing you can give fish away to people, right? And you wouldn't cull the dead fish. You can actually give it away. But I found out later if you give fish away, and I've never done this, But you have to have some little form to give to someone that goes against their limit. I mean, dude, there's a lot of rules out there. I guarantee y'all, most of y'all don't know that you can't just give fish away to people. If you catch them, you can't just give fish away. It's illegal. You have to have like a slip of paper. And it has to have a form or something that goes against their krill limit now. Because you are allowed 2 limits on possession of you, right? And you're also not allowed to clean fish like in a boat. Because since you're allowed to have 2 limits of possession on you at all times, right? You can't go out there and clean fish, because if you cleaned a whole bunch of fish, that's 1 limit, and you can go have another limit if you caught them, but that's illegal, right? You can't have, basically y'all can't have 2 limits of crappie in your deep freeze right now, or you can get a ticket if you have like 51 fish. Like those are laws that you have to, these are hard things to know of everything. I'm just saying, there's a lot of stuff out there. So just be careful about just making blanket statements of going, should have known. Like, you know, don't be throwing rocks in glass houses, right? I mean, it's not as easy as it sounds. So I give them the leeway on that. Now, video's gone too long. I will bring up the next point that everyone started making, okay? Stay tuned for that one. Stay tuned for that one. Yep, I'm going to release this one first. Then I'll go release that one. And then I'll go release the main one I made about the whole thing as a whole, right? But I want to make sure everyone understands each one of these points before that one. Because I found out with videos and social media and all that stuff, man, it goes in all these stupid different directions, right? And you gotta have all that condensed in there where you can think about all these things logically, right? Okay. Let's start making the next.